Good evening, you're watching RTD's English News. Tonight's top stories are: Head of State received a high-ranking American general. President Barack Obama pushes for gun control, redoubles efforts against ISIL.
Those were the top stories. Welcome to this English News edition. The President of the Republic, His Excellency Ismail Margele, received this morning the high-ranking American General Joseph Danforth. The American General was the bearer of a message from American President Barack Obama. The head of state Ismail Margele and General Joseph Danforth were discussing about the bilateral relation between the two countries. They have also discussed about the American Army forces stationed in Djibouti. The Chief of the Army Major General Zakaria Sheikh Ibrahim and the Chief of Secretary Hassan Said Khaire were among these meetings.
A leader needs a vision and a dream for his country, a leader who has dedicated his life for uplifting his country and its people in a better life. Today, the legacy of Ismail Margele and his achievements in many fields unprecedented the restoration of a national pride is today the foundation of the Republic of Djibouti. Let's see the following that bringing to light these achievements, rendering Djibouti to a higher rank widely known in the international scene.
Leaders and members of the Popular Ally Party for the Progress has once again renewed their confidence to the outgoing president so that he engages in the next electoral battle, what will take in April 2016, and so that he remains leading the country, limiting the chances of success of other potential candidates. The experience that he will have of the leader will seriously put his political opponents, whose member floating on air, having believed to the February 2013 legislative election. But must first remind that the presidential election has nothing compared with the parliamentary election, knowing that any election must take place within the rules of transparency and according to the standards set by the Commission for the Organization and Election Supervision. The candidate Ismail Margele has postulated to its own succession has beyond doubt the popular support since its first inauguration to the Supreme Magistracy in April 1999. In this election, he has won a 74% of cast vote. In April 8, 2005 election, he has been re-elected with 94% of the vote. The opposition has called for a boycott. Finally, in the election of April 8, 2011, he received 80% of vote cast. Number of observers of the Djiboutian political scene have been to the announcement of the president candidacy for the next election has called his opponent. The head of the state balances sheet in question is simply outstanding as for from being put inside. He was the one who has enabled the country to our progress and economic development, bringing peace and civil harmony to end the army conflict that affected the country between 1991 and 1993, where an agreement has been found and signed. He has been the one which has sharply reduced the former colonial power advisor influence to interference in the internal affairs of the country. He was the one who took the advantage of the international context following the attacks of September 11, 2001 in New York and Washington to provide U.S. forces logistical and military facilities to deploy installation combat units for the first time in military bases on the African continent, and was the one who was able to negotiate the royalty payment for the use of military infrastructure of the national soil to both the French, American and other countries in Djibouti in their fight against terrorism and maritime piracy in the Gulf of Aden and the coast of of Somalia. Ismail Margele was the one who has initiated the Art of Somali National Reconciliation Conference and then took the risk to send troops into the neighboring country ravaged by civil war for years to the rebirth and for the only purpose of giving peace and hope. The head of state has been the one who has given a new impulse to the economic and trade relation with Ethiopia, action that fits perfectly in the process of regional economic integration. Bilateral relations have taken a large scale and dimension deemed strategic because they affect various areas of cooperation, including the need for water, electricity, telecommunication, and transport chain. Upon taking office of the head of the state of the country, Ismail Margele was a ringleader who initiated a comprehensive education system reform by multiplying schools, college, high schools in the country, create the first university in the country, and schools and medical school. The one who initiated the holding of the general state of the working of the state institution to judge their work and the efficiency of Department of Justice. This is the one who has accepted that our regularly and organized reflection seminar on governmental action to an interactive dialogue should take place between the political leaders of the executive and the average citizen, a direct and open discussion between rulers and ruled, between ambassador from abroad student. He is the one who, with the presence of foreign forces in Djibouti, has somewhat emboldened the ambassador to what increasingly interest in the country. Thus it has been the construction of Dora Airport and oil terminal. President Gele has able to also to anticipate the situation. He started in the years 2000 economic partnership between state and private sector by trusting the management of the Djibouti port to a businessman consortium. From the very beginning, in attract influential businessmen to invest in Djibouti. His courageous initiative and risk-taking earned him the recognition of the fellow citizens who sees firsthand the progress, and it's also conferred him international structure state of man. He has been everywhere received by the great of this world when it comes to the Chinese president, tipping President Barack Obama or King Salman of Saudi Arabia and many others. He participates in all important conferences and he is welcome with all the honors. Peace and stability in the Republic of Djibouti are the main factor of this political and economic success of domestic or diplomatic level on the international scene. Djibouti city is bustling and with activities, and it is becoming more attractive. Its new building and construction sites are everywhere visible. The leader has and can still preside over this young state. In the framework of the National Week of the Fight Against AIDS, the conference rooms of the Police Palace has held this morning a workshop on the role of parliamentarians in the acceleration of the response to HIV/AIDS in Djibouti. This information and awareness workshop on the issues of HIV/AIDS for the parliamentarians was conducted in the presence of the President of the National Assembly, Mr. Mohammed Ali Hamad, the Minister of Health, Dr. Qasim Isaq Usman, the Executive Secretary of the Inter-Ministerial Technical Committee of Fight Against HIV/AIDS, the Resident Coordinator of the United Nations Agency in Djibouti, the representative of UNAIDS in Djibouti, as well as two experts. This meeting was intended to meet the exchange and sharing of ideas in the role that can play the parliamentarians in the acceleration of HIV/AIDS response in Djibouti. By elsewhere, the role of parliamentarians is crucial because the main roles of Parliament and its members are to vote on new laws or amend existing laws in order to create an environment for response to this epidemic, which is realized through the protection of human rights. The main objective of the workshop was designed to inform and sensitize the parliamentarians on the success and the challenges of HIV/AIDS response in order to ensure their involvement in the effort to intensify the program of HIV/AIDS response for all, with the particular emphasis on the fight against the stigma and discrimination.
The Minister of Health has in his speech said that HIV prevalence rate is currently estimated at 1.6%, and a feminization of the epidemic in knowing that the women represent 46% of the population. Moreover, the prevalence is high enough in the age group of 20 to 34 years old. This population also represents 52% of the population age of 15 to 49 years old. They are our top priorities, said the minister. As for stable high-risk groups such as couples with discordant HIV status, the people involved in multisexual partnership are priority targets for the new NSP 2015-2017 program against the AIDS. If a time not so long that HIV/AIDS was seen as a morbid reality, today, said the minister, the face of the epidemic has changed with the advent of effective antiretroviral treatment and well tolerated, which contributes greatly to the increase in life expectancy and quality of life of those infected. Djibouti, despite its limited resources, however, set up a system that ensures access for antiretroviral treatment.
As for the President of the National Assembly, Mohamed Ali Hamad, has indicated that this workshop is of great importance since it will inform and educate this to sensitize more elect representatives of the issues of HIV/AIDS. He has also expressed his sincere thanks to the international experts for sharing their knowledge with them. As you know all, he continued, the Djiboutian government under the leadership of His Excellency Ismail Margile has put the fight against this pandemic at the heart of the national public policy. The proof is to Executive Secretary of Technical and Sectorial Committees to fight against HIV/AIDS, malaria and tuberculosis, he concluded.
The Minister of National Education and Vocational Training, Dr. Jama Al-Mauki, has opened this morning the work of a training workshop on the use of tablets at the team management and the teachers of the class of primary school grade 1. This workshop, which will continue until tomorrow, will allow the participants to become familiar with the use of the digital tablets in the class. More than 200 people composed of educational advisors, directors of schools, and all first-year teachers took part in this training, which will take place from December 7 to 8 in the conference room of the CFF.
In his opening remarks, the Minister of Education has placed a special emphasis on the teaching interests and utility of tablets for the children of first graders. In continuing his speech, the Minister of Education, Dr. Jama Al-Mauki, has recalled that this training is an important step in the process of generalizing the introduction of digital tablets in primary education. He has also stated that the use of the digital tablets in the school will be an important change for all the students, but also the parents and the educational community, because it is guarantees and prepare the child to enroll in the educational quality of tomorrow. He has also urged the leader of schools, the advisor, but especially the teacher, to involve the benefit from the work of the workshop in order to assist in the establishment of the best strategies for an optimized use of tablets in the classroom. Let's recall that in the context of this project, these tablets will be in the hand of a first-year student in all the schools of the country next week.
This morning was held at the Palace of the People a launching ceremony of the appropriation of young promoters initiated by the SIBEC under the leadership of the Secretary of State for Solidarity and with the support of UNDP. For this purpose, the Popular Fund for Savings and Credit (SIBEC) has proceeded to the granting of microcredit to a dozen unemployed graduates. in the presence of the Minister of Employment and Administrative Reforms, Mr. Abdi Hussein, initiated in 2012. The granting of these micro credits allows the young promoters to realize their projects, such as the establishment of a society of cleaning, the creation of a barber shop, in passing by the trade and the import-export. The ceremony has brought together the president of the Commune of Balbala, Yusuf Nuhu, the Secretary General of the IDDS, and the Director of the Fund, among others.
The Secretary of State for Solidarity has in her intervention thanked the different institutions that support the youth to realize their project. She said that it must help the youth to come out from the chill of the poverty and support them to create their companies. It is a great honor for me, she continued, to be a part of this new type of project financed through the Republic of Djibouti and the UNDP partnership, and the head of state, the devotion, who has always put a priority on the forefront of this political agenda, the eradication of poverty and the access of credit for young promoters. Today, the government is following the head of state command for reducing poverty and increasing employment.
The Ministry of Health, Dr. Qasim Isaaq Usman, has gathered today in the Great Hall of the Ministry of Health the directors of hospitals in the health sector and the chief doctors of the Military Corps Health Service for a consultation meeting between the different existing medical services on the national territory in the organization of the health emergencies and risk management. The meeting brought together the Secretary General of the Health Ministry, Mr. Ali Silay Abdullah, the Inspector General of Health Services, the Director General of the HGB and its Medical Director, the Administrative Director of the HPB, the Director of Dar al-Hanan, the Director of Husseina, the Director of the KAMI, as well as the Colonel of the Civil Protection Services, the Chief Doctor of Health Services of the FAD, the Chief Doctor of the Health Services of the FNB, and the Chief Doctor of the Gendarmerie Health Service. The objective of the meeting was to focus on the organization of the services of support for emergencies in the whole country, in order to implement an effective support in case of health disasters. There has been question to put in place a better framework for coordination between the various services of the department and of the constitutive parties for the action and on the ground. The Minister of Health, Dr. Qasim Isaaq Usman, recalled the importance for the country to have a plan for support emergencies which organize the intervention of each in order to demonstrate effectiveness and quick action on the ground for the interests of the population.
Under the first IGAD Games, the Secretary of State for Youth and Sport proceeded this morning in the establishment of organizing committee on the IGAD Games this morning at the Goulet Stadium. The Secretary of State for Youth and Sport, Badul Hassan Badul, Secretary General Wahib Hamadou, the Chief Technical Advisor Umar Agedi, the Director of National Institute of Sport Training Saeed Ali Hussein, the various chairmen of committees of games and Sport Federation were present at this occasion. The commission in charge of organization of playing IGAD Games from 16 and 26 January 2016 were formed. The Insider Games, initiated by the President of the Republic, His Excellency Ismail Margele, allow the youth of the region to exchange and share the same values of peace through sport.
In his intervention, the Secretary of State for Youth and Sports reminded us that the Republic of Djibouti is not only as initiator of the games of the IGAD, but also organizes these first games of the IGAD. He said they aimed at establishing a climate of friendship and brotherhood among the young people of member countries of this institution. The IGAD Games, he added, the Secretary of State for Youth and Sports, have been initiated by the head of state, Ismail Margele, to allow the youth of the region to encounter, share the same values of peace through sports. Before passing to the regional scale, the primary courses were to ensure first the national scale. The result of the head of state's policies today possible by the results we have pursued. More than 22 medals and trophies today speak of itself. The primary objective of these games is to allow the people of the regions to share cultural experiences, he concluded.
Under the leadership of the Minister of Muslim Affairs and Culture, the Executive Secretary of High Islamic Council has organized this morning a ceremony for the holding of the first meeting of the High Islamic Council New Members Committee to Mosque College Gashamale. This meeting has seen the participation of the Secretary General of the Department, Mr. Mohammed Hussein Dawale, the Executive Secretary of High Islamic Council, Mr. Abdusalam Farah Magare, as well as the Technical Advisor to the Minister for Muslim Affairs and several members of Islamic Council various organizations. During this meeting, they have discussed the ways and means to develop the religious activities, and for the High Islamic Council, the Executive Secretary of High Islamic Council gave a speech in which he welcomed the Minister and members of the Council by affirming the effort undertaken by the Minister to improve the capability of this Islamic institution. Mr. Abdul Salam recalled that the High Islamic Council was created by presidential decree in 2004 to organize the Islamic affairs in Djibouti.
For its part, the Minister for Muslim Affairs and Culture, Mr. Aden Hassan Aden, has expressed its satisfaction for its first-of-its-kind meeting with the new members of the Islamic Council. Mr. Aden Hassan Aden stated the major role of the ulamas in the society. He has also reaffirmed the importance of the High Islamic Council to adjust the Muslim affairs in Djibouti. And finally, the Minister of Muslim Affairs reminded the members of the High Islamic Council to aim strengthening the national unity in the orientation in the religious domain.
In the Continental News, an expert of environment says that we are looking at creating of a program to avoid using charcoal or even gas and to use rice to instead. Dryness is one of the effects of climate change. International institutions and government are struggling to find a solution to the problem, but what can the town do? Let's see with more details.
The rainy season was supposed to have started in Johannesburg at the same time as the rest of South Africa, but it hasn't rained for months now. This drought is one of the effects of climate change. International institutions and government are struggling to find a solution to the problem. But what can the towns do? This is one of the questions raised at the AfriCity Summit meeting, which has just been held in Johannesburg. We are working on a program that is generating electricity from our landfill sites, said Mayor of Johannesburg, Park Stoke. We also have our own generation plant for electricity at our vast water treatment plants, and we have program about converting our buses to dual fuel buses, which are currently running to a system that is a dual fuel that uses diesel and biogas. The idea is that progressively we get more reliable gas sources that we would be able to convert fully to gas. It's not only the large cities that are reconsidering their development strategy, the smallest towns are also trying to go green. One such town is Rosbetiu, a small community of 12,000 inhabitants in the north of Senegal. This area is known for the cultivation of rice. The town's mayor is examining ways of exploiting the resources to a greater advantage. We are looking at creating a program to avoid using charcoal or even gas, and to use rice straw instead, explained Mayor of Rosbetiu, Amadou Bekay Diop. This would be a great economy as the rice straw allows a much longer burning time than charcoal. This would mean that we wouldn't have to chop wood and destroy the forests. We would therefore achieve our target and make Rosbetiu a green town. Many African towns have problems with electricity cut, but the solution is right there for solar panels. Vincent Kitiu, a representative from the United Nations Habitat Agency, confirmed that their use is becoming more widespread I was very surprised to find in a small village in Burkina Faso shops selling solar panels. These panels came from China and were on sale in the village shops. This means that we are finding ourselves more and more in a period of energy change because these panels are affordable and there is a demand. People are therefore turning to this new method.
In a very prime-time address to the country from the Oval Office, President Barack Obama made clear that he thinks increased gun control at home is essential to fight against ISIL and terrorism in general. Let's watch it.
Calling the San Bernardino mass shooting a terrorist act, President Barack Obama stressed that the United States must adopt rules making it harder for people to purchase powerful assault weapons, as well as ban all those of the United States no-fly list from doing so. He also called for Congress to support the war on Islamic State. In Obama's rare Oval Office address, he stressed that the San Bernardino attack was an act of terrorism. On Wednesday, 14 Americans were killed as they came together to celebrate the holidays. They were taken from family and friends who loved them deeply. Obama said, "So far we have no evidence that the killers were directed by a terrorist organization overseas or that they were part of a broader conspiracy here at home. But it is clear that the two of them had gone down the dark path of radicalization, embracing a perverted interpretation of Islam that calls for war against America and the West." Obama called for tougher gun control measures, urging Congress to pass legislation that would prohibit individuals on the United States no-fly list from purchasing a gun. What could possibly be the argument for allowing a terrorist suspect to buy a semi-automatic weapon? This is a matter of national security, he said.
Still in the international scene, a collective of Muslim groups in the U.S. has raised almost $13,000 over the past 2 days for the families of victims of the Wednesday shooting as prey of a social service center that left 14 dead and 17 wounded in San Bernardino, California. The Muslims Unite for San Bernardino initiative is seeking to raise at least $15,000 for the immediate needs of the bereaved relative. If we exceed over $15 goals, we can even assess of families within long-term experience of possibly donate to the regional center where the shooting took place, said Kazi. Kazi told that the fund was developed before the alleged shooters. "We are Muslims were identified, and so it was not initiated as an effort to prevent anti-Muslim sentiment of the events of a backlash." That's it for tonight's news, and have a great evening.